We have 2 minutes to start the program. So in the next 2 minutes, we'll begin. All right, so thank you all for your time and then your attention. Today happens to be the first episode of The Lawyer's Diary. It's a legal program which is aimed at demystifying the law and then making it clear to the ordinary Ghanaian. Another essence is to give young lawyers the opportunity to exhibit what they know, make the law clear to every single individual and a Ghanaian. So today, our first topic is actually going to be done by lawyer Helen Amponsah Asare. Lawyer Amponsah is an associate at Intrapa & Co. Intrapa & Co. is one of the leading law firms in Ghana. So I'll plead that you give her all the attention, and then everything that she will discuss with us after the meeting. If you have any questions, we can also ask her. So we'll be speaking more on doing business in Ghana, guidelines for setup. But her emphasis will actually be on sole proprietorships and limited by shares. So she will explain to us, if you want to form a company in Ghana, what are the steps that you need to go through before the registration, during the registration, and then after the registration. And then she also make us know that during the registration, what are some of the things that you need to do, what are some of the information that is required, and then also after registration, the company is informed. What are some of the things that would also be required from you as either a shareholder, meaning an owner of a company, or a director, some of their responsibilities. So I would as I've already introduced lawyer Helen, I'll mute all of us and then unmute her. Just a minute. Helen, you can unmute yourself, and then I've made her the host. So, Laura, welcome to our first episode of The Lawyer's Diary. The floor is yours, and we hope and know that you are going to give us a visual. Thank you for accepting the invitation.
You're very much welcome. You're very much welcome, my senior colleague. Thank you also for giving me this opportunity. Good evening, everyone, once again. As was already mentioned by Mr. Osei Berima, today we'll be talking about doing business in Ghana, legal guidelines for startups with emphasis on sole proprietors and limited by shares companies. He's already given us a guideline as to how the presentation is going to look like. So basically, we are going to look at the concepts of sole proprietorship, the concepts of limited by shares companies. We'll look at some pre-registration requirements for both sole proprietorship and limited by shares companies. Then once we are done with that, we'll talk about some registration guidelines for sole proprietorship, registration guidelines for limited by shares companies. And then we'll look at some things that we would have to consider once we've been able to register our business. That is some post-registration requirements. And then we'll try to wrap up, and then we'll have some time for questions and answers. So by way of introduction, when we talk about the concept of sole proprietorship, I believe it's something that we all have an idea on. It simply means a sole trader, that's individual entrepreneur running his or her own business. And it's actually the most simplest and most common business structure. We have so many. I'm sure everybody has a relative who operates a shop or a business that belongs to him alone. And when we say sole proprietorship, it's actually owned by one individual, as the name suggests. And there isn't any difference between the individual and the business. So the individual enjoys all the profits from the business. The individual also bears all the liabilities, or I'll say debts, or any claims that may arise from the business. Then we'll move to what limited by shares companies are. So with limited by shares companies, it's quite different from that of sole proprietorship, in that once you register your company as a limited by shares under the laws of Ghana or worldwide, I'll say that it actually acquires the status of a natural person. So like a human being, it has power to do certain things on its own. So the company, I will say it's an artificial person. So it can enter into contracts on its own. It can acquire properties on its own. It is actually separate from the directors or the shareholders or the officers of the company, so that there is a distinction between the owners of the company or the underlying owners of the company and the company itself. So now let's look at some pre-registration requirements. So you have a business idea and you want to start something in Ghana, and you are looking at registering it either as a sole proprietor, registering your business name as a sole proprietor, or you are looking at incorporating it as a limited by shares company. So before you even start the whole process of registration, you have to come up with your business name. So once you have your business name, the first thing that you have to do is to conduct a name search. This is done at the Registrar General's department, but you can also do it online, and it is accessible to everybody. We have something called the Registrar General's Department portal, the RGD portal. When you go on Google and you type name search, RGD portal, the search result will actually lead you to the link where you can conduct your name search. And the purpose of this whole name search is to ensure that your proposed business name is not in use by anyone, and that it is available for use by you. So once you are able to do this and ascertain that you can use your proposed business name, it actually saves you the time of having to go to the Registrar General's department at the point of submitting your documents, and only to be told that by the officers at the Registrar General's department that your name cannot be used for your business because it's already in use by another person. So the purpose is actually to save you the time and the hassle of your business name being rejected at the point of submitting your document. So once you have done your name search and you have verified that you can use your name, you have the option to reserve your name. We call it name reservation. It can be done at the Registrar General's department at a cost of 50 cedis. So just in case you do not intend to register your business now, you have the chance to request for the registrar to reserve your name for you. So at the convenient time when you are registering your business, you can adopt that name. And then you have to also have something called a taxpayer identification number. So with taxpayer identification number, or what we call TIN, it is required for every taxpayer in Ghana to have a TIN. So you as a sole proprietor, that is you, the individual registering your business, you have to get a TIN. And the process is very simple. So for an individual, all you need is to get the individual TIN form. And this can be purchased at the TIN office at the Registrar General's Department or your local tax office, or you can simply download it at the GRA website. That is the Ghana Revenue Authority website. Complete it, submit it with a valid national ID card, and it's usually take about 21 days. By law, it's supposed to take about 21 days, but it actually takes about a week to get it in. Just in case you are registering a company, you should know that your shareholders, your directors, your auditors, your secretary, they all have to get it in. So you have to be mindful to apply for TIN for them if they do not have one. In case you are applying for a company, you have to download the TIN forms for companies or purchase the TIN forms for companies. And then when you are submitting it, you add the registration documents of the company, such as the certificates of incorporation and the certificates of commencement. And you submit it together with the ID card of the person signing on behalf of the company. And you submit it at the TIN office and it will be generated for the company. So now let's look at some registration guidelines for sole proprietorship. So what the law actually requires in simple terms is that if you're an individual and you have a place of business in Ghana, and you are trading under a business name, for example, Mel Ruchis or EMB Photography, you are required within 14 days from the day you start your business. That is, if you do not intend to register it as a limited by share company, you are required to register your business within 14 days from the date you start. It is called registration of business name. This is also a very simple process. So this is what you need. The form that is used to register your business is called Form A. And when you go to the Registrar General's Department website, you look for forms, and then it will indicate forms for sole proprietorship, Form A. You can easily download it there and complete it and then submit. Or you can purchase the forms at the Registrar General's Department, complete it and submit it. When you are completing the form, you will have to provide certain general information about the business that you intend to do. So that is when you have to provide for the name of your business, your principal place of address, the telephone number, whether you own the premises you are doing the business at, or whether it is free use or you are renting. And you, the individual, that is you, the sole proprietor, you also have to provide your particulars. So your name, your full name, if you have any formal names, whether your age, your telephone number, your email address. These days, they require that you supply your digital address as well. So you would have to generate that if you haven't generated it already. And once you have provided all these information, then you can submit your forms at the Registrar General's Department. These days, they have incorporated the TIN application to the registration document. So if you do not have a TIN prior to registering your business, you can apply for it at the point of registering it by indicating it on the form. So just in case you are now applying for your TIN at the point of registration, then you have to submit your form with a valid national ID card. So if everything goes through successfully, the registrar will give you a business name registration certificate, and you are required to paste this business name registration certificate at the premises where you are having your business. And then the registrar will also give you a certified true copy of the Form A. That is the form that you submitted for registration. You are required to renew your business name annually. So at a fee of 25 Ghana cedis, if you intend to keep using it. So this on the screen is a sample business name registration certificate. So this is something that will be given to you. This is the sample of the registration certificate that will be given to you once you have successfully registered your business with the Registrar General Department. And it is also, this is what you are supposed to exhibit at your place of business at all times. So that is that for sole proprietorship. So with respect to limited by shares companies, you would also have to provide certain general information, and it is advisable that before you even think of downloading the required forms, you have put in place all the necessary information and documentation that you will need before you complete the forms. So basically, you will need to provide certain information about the business. So the name of the company, the general nature of business, such as, are you going into construction? Are you going into real estate? Are you going into mining? You have to indicate that on the form. You have to indicate the place of business, the address, the email address, the phone numbers, etc. And then you have to provide particulars for certain people. So with limited by shares company, like the name suggests, you need shareholders, at least one shareholder, or let me say an underlying owner. So you would need at least one person, and the shareholder can either be an individual or it can be a company, and you are required to provide the particulars of that individual or company. So the name of your shareholder, age, TIN, address, etc. And then you have to provide for directors. Directors are the ones who manage the company. They are in charge of most of the decisions made by the company. So you need at least a minimum of 2 directors. You need to provide the registrar with a minimum of 2 directors. And your directors can only be human beings. You can't have a company acting as a director. And these people must be people of sound mind, and they should be above 18 years old. They shouldn't be undischarged bankrupt. The directors are also required to swear an affidavit or a statutory declaration, and they have to indicate that they haven't really committed any offense involving fraud or dishonesty within the past 5 years from the date in which you are registering the business, or they haven't committed any offense relating to the promotion or incorporation of a company, or that they have not been a director or a senior manager of a company that has become insolvent within the preceding 5 years. So once you have directors that meet all these requirements, then you have to also provide particulars of a company secretary. So the role of the company secretary is, in simple terms, the company secretary is supposed to advise the board, assist the board in performing its functions. So they advise the board in respect of their roles and their duties as provided for by the law. They are in charge of organizing meetings subject to the authority of the board, preparing minutes, and filing all returns and necessary documentations at the Registrar General's Department. So your company secretary can either be an individual or it can be a company. So under the new act, there is a new Companies Act was put in place last year, and it has provided for certain requirements that a person has to meet before he or she can act as a company secretary. And I want to mention a few. So somebody like a lawyer can act as a company secretary. A chartered accountant can act as your company secretary. Somebody who is a chartered secretary can act as your company secretary. If the individual has studied something or a particular course in relation to company secretarial at the tertiary level, that person can act as a company secretary. Or somebody who has trained under a person whose function is that of a company secretary for a period of at least 3 years can also function as your company secretary. When you are choosing a company to act as your company secretary, you have to make sure that there is somebody in the company who meets the requirements of a company secretary for an individual. And then you will need to provide particulars of your auditors. So your auditors, these are external auditors. They are the ones who will prepare your profit and loss accounts and your financial statements that you would have to be submitting at the Registrar General's Department annually once you incorporate the company. So you have to provide particulars of who your auditors are. And then once you have all these things, now the company secretary, the directors, and your auditors, they are required to provide a letter of consent to act for your company. So you have to obtain these letters of consent from them and add it to your registration documents when submitting at the Registrar General's Department. And then you need something called stated capital. So in simple terms, stated capital at the point of registering your company. So your stated capital is actually the cash contribution or the contributions in kind from your shareholders or the underlying owners of your company. So if your company is wholly Ghanaian owned, that is, if your company, that's the shareholders are all Ghanaians, it is required by law that you can start it with a minimum stated capital of 500 Ghana cedis. But when you have a foreigner as a shareholder, or if you have entering into a joint venture with a foreigner, let's say you are partnering with a foreigner, or you have foreigners as your shareholders, you are required to provide a minimum, the foreigner is required to provide a minimum foreign capital of 200,000 United States dollars. So before you start your company, assuming that you have met somebody from the United Kingdom and the person is willing to invest in your business, and because of that, he wants to acquire some shares and become a shareholder in your company, he has to contribute at least a minimum capital of about 200,000 United States dollars. So you have to be mindful of that. And then you should also note that you have to pay 0.5% of your stated capital as stamp duty prior to registering your business. So if your minimum capital is 500 Ghana cedis, so 0.5% of 500 Ghana cedis, it will be added. You have to bear in mind that you have to add it to your registration fees when you are submitting your documents for registration. So once you have all these necessary information in place, you download the required form. So when you go to the Registrar General's Department website, we have what we call, they have a section for limited by shares companies, and we have the forms available there. So the forms are Form 3, where you provide for the profile of the company, Form 4, is actually a declaration by the directors that indeed the underlying owners have paid up their minimum stated capital, and the regulations. So the regulations actually governs the company. It's usually a standard one that is downloaded. Unless you decide to make some amendments with, then you would have to contact a consultant to help you do that. So once you have all these documents in place, you then submit it for examination and approval at the Registrar General's department. So once your documents, your registration is approved, you'll be given a certificate of incorporation and commencement. You'll be given your regulations, you'll be given a Form 3 and a Form 4. So very soon, when you register a company, you wouldn't have to, the registrar will no longer issue you a certificate of commencement. Under the new Companies Act, all you need is your certificate of incorporation now. But the Registrar General is yet to migrate into the new system. So currently, if you have to register your company now, they are still issuing certificates of commencement. So this is actually a sample of a certificate of incorporation. So this is what is given to you. So I hereby certify that of fair support units is incorporated under the Companies Act. This is how a certificate of incorporation actually looks like. So then now we have registered our business name as a sole proprietor. We have registered our company, our limited by shares company. What happens after that? Can you go ahead and start operating? There are some post-registration requirements. It is actually required by law that every business, every place of business has a business operating permit. So whether it's a limited by share company or a sole proprietor, it is issued by the local assemblies. But these days, this process has been automated and integrated into the process of registration, such that when you are submitting your registration documents, you have the option to choose whether you want to apply for a business operating permit. So once you do that, you are going to get the local assembly, the Metropolitan Municipal District Assembly. They will now have information from the Registrar General's department. And once your business has been registered, you'll be issued with a temporary business operating permit. And it's valid for 3 months. So within that 3 months, your local assembly will contact you. It will conduct its own due diligence, ensure that you meet the requisite requirements to operate the business within the assembly or within the municipality. So once it is satisfied, they will issue you with an invoice for you to make payment for a final business operating permit. Then you may have to register with the Ghana Investment Promotion Center. So if your business, you are in partnership with a foreigner has shares in your company, once you are done registering your business with the Registrar General's department, you are required, it is mandatory, before you start operating, you have to register with the Ghana Investment Promotion Center. And then you would have to register your business also with SNIT, whether it's a limited by share company or you are a sole proprietor, you have to register with SNIT, and you should be able to file your SNIT returns for your employees. Ensure that your employees have SNIT numbers, and you should be making your requisite SNIT returns on behalf of your employees. And then you have to register with the Ghana Revenue Authority for VAT certificates and for filing tax returns. And then depending on the kind of industry that you find yourself in, you may have to cross-check some industry-specific requirements. So for example, if you are into mining, you may have to contact the Minerals Commission. Depending on what aspect of mining that you are doing, you would have to obtain some approvals and licenses from them before you can actually start operating. If you are into oil and gas, you may have to contact Petroleum Commission for approvals and licenses before you start producing. Or if you are into food and drugs, you would have to contact the Food and Drugs Authority for requisite approvals for producing food or producing drugs or even pharmaceutical products. And then it is very necessary that you create a bank account in the name. It is very necessary that you create a bank account in the name of your business. So once you are done incorporating your business as a limited by shares company, the bank would actually require you, for the purpose of creating an account, to submit your registration document, which is basically your certificates of incorporation and commencement. Some banks may request you to bring an introductory letter from a lawyer or, let's say, a solicitor. So if you do have one, you obtain the introductory letter from the lawyer and then you submit it for the opening of the account. If you're a sole proprietor and you want to open an account in the name of your business name, they will require you to submit your registration certificate for the purpose of opening the bank account. Right. So basically, we've spoken about the concept of sole proprietorship, and we've spoken about the concept of limited by shares companies. We've spoken about pre-registration requirements, the fact that you have to conduct your name search and verify that your business name can be used or is not in use by anybody. You have the option of having your name, your business name reserved for future use. We've spoken about acquiring a tax identification number. We've also looked at registration guidelines. We know that we have to use Form A for sole proprietors. We have to use Forms 3, Form 4, and the regulations for limited by shares companies. And all these can be obtained from the Registrar General's Department or can be downloaded online from the Registrar General's Department website. We've looked at some post-registration requirements, the fact that you need to obtain a business operating permit, registering with the Ghana Revenue Authority, SNIT, and then registering your company with Ghana Investment Promotion Center if you have a foreign shareholder or a foreign owner. And then we've also looked at creating a bank account in the name of your business. And we've also looked at some industry-specific requirements. So depending on the kind of industry that you are in, you would have to seek the requisite approvals before you can start operating your business. So this is actually a summary of some of the guidelines that you have to look at when you are starting a business in Ghana. This is the end of the presentation. Thank you so much for listening. I hope I communicated. I hope you've learned something new. We'll have time for some questions and answers now. Thank you very much.
Hello.
Hello.
Helen, you have to make me the host so I can coordinate the questions and answers.
How do I make you the host?
So go to participants, click on. Anyway, I think we can still go ahead with it. If you have any questions, kindly you can type it or mute yourself and ask. But while speaking, there were two questions that came up. One of them was that in terms of the name reservation, is there an expiry date on the name reservation? That is, if you want to reserve your name with the Registrar Generals for some time, can you actually, how long can you reserve it? Is it perpetual or it has an expiry date? The second one was also on the company name itself. We understand that sometimes the registrar at his discretion can some motto or out of their own volition restricts registration of certain names. If I choose a name, under what condition can the registrar tell me that I can't use this particular name?
Okay, Thank you very much. So in respect of the name use or the particular name in which you have to use, so there are certain restrictions in respect of business names for sole proprietors. So the law requires that the business name should not actually be your true surname. It should not include your true surname, though it can have your initials with something else added to it. And with respect to limited liability company, sometimes the only reason why the Registrar General may refuse to register your name is because, number one, it's already in use by another person. And perhaps it does not suggest the objects of your business. So for example, and then so to the extent that the name actually is misleading. So when you have such a case, the Registrar General is likely to reserve your name. Sorry, to reject your business name.
Okay, right. And then the next one was on the expiry of the name reservation. Once I reserve a name, is it perpetual or it has an expiry that probably if after a year having used it, somebody else can use it?
Okay, so with respect to that one, I haven't come across any expiration period for it, but I would have to look up for it for that individual if there is any. It's actually something new that has been introduced when they started the whole online portal system. So I have to check how long you can reserve the name for. But for now, I won't be able to provide a specific period for now.
All right, there's another question from Mr. George Amwako. He asked that, how about a group of companies? How is it registered? Does it follow the same procedure, or probably it's with respect to another, but it has a different registration procedure?
Okay, a group of companies in respect of, I'm not clear about it. Is it that you are registering the company as a group? So I don't understand the question.
Mr. Mwako, if you are on, you can unmute yourself and then ask the question and clarify it for her understanding.
Okay. Good evening, please.
Good evening.
Hello.
Yeah, Mr. Mwako, you're on.
Please, it's Atomako. Please,
okay.
I'm talking in respect to, say, you see, we have Despite group of companies, we have Kesben group of companies. With that one, do they register that name, or it would have to count the number of businesses under them, or how do they get that?
Oh, okay. I get your question. So when you are registering the company as a group companies, okay, so let's say Despite group of companies, you register it as Despite group of companies, but in your let's say your nature of business, okay, there is a portion of the form where you can indicate that it's acting as the holding company for so and so company. So let's say Despite group of companies has Despite Media, Despite Food Processing, Despite so and so. So you register it as Despite group of companies, but then you have to indicate on the forms, let's say the object of the business is to act as the holding company for Despite Media, Despite Food Processing, Despite Music. So that is how it is done. You don't have to register it separately. Already the companies that come under the group is already incorporated. Okay, so if you are registering, if you are creating a holding company, we call it a holding, if you are creating a holding company for it, then all you have to do is to register the holding company and indicate that it is acting as holding company for so and so company. So maybe Despite Media, Despite Group, Despite Media, Despite Music, Despite Food. I hope I've been able to answer your question.
Yes, please. So after registering, if there is a new company you would want to put under? Do you have to register it again, or you'd have to go and then update your data?
You would have to amend. You don't have to register the company again. So there is something called because we have amendment procedures, okay, after registration. So all you have to do is to amend what we call your nature of business and include the fact that it is acting as a group company for the company you want to add.
Okay, thank you.
All right, so there's another question from, the name is Samsung. I've registered as a whole proprietor, but cannot find my name when I search online. What does this mean, and what should I do? How different is my personal term from the one issued on my business registration name certificate?
Okay, so with the, okay, thank you very much. So with the sole proprietor, they actually use your TIN, your individual TIN for the business. Okay, because it is the same as you, the individual. It is not separate from you, the individual. And if you cannot find your business online, I would advise that you first of all go to the Registrar General's Department and conduct a manual search. So submit a letter and conduct a manual search. And I'm sure they'll be able to provide you with the requisite information as to what has happened to your business. It could also be that maybe you have not renewed your business for quite some time now. So they have taken it off the business name registration list. That can also be, but you should submit an official search at the Registrar General's Department. They will give you an official result.
And then another question was how different is his personal TIN from the registration of business? Like the person wants to know whether the personal TIN is different from the company TIN.
Oh, okay. So with okay, so if it's a limited by shares company, okay, the company has a TIN on its own. Now remember we said that the company is separate from the owners, and the company has the powers of a natural person. It's seen as an artificial human being. So the company has a separate TIN from the individuals. So that is the shareholders' officers, because the company is taxed separately from the individuals. Okay. And if it's it's when it's a sole proprietor that now we use the TIN for the individual, because you and the business are not separate, you are the same. So the TIN for the individual is the same as the TIN for the sole proprietorship. It's just a business name registration. So your TIN, your individual TIN is what is used for the business if you're a sole proprietor.
Okay, so there's we'll take about 3 more questions and then we'll call it a day. But let me say that the presentation will be sent to all the people that registered via email. We'll put this video recording too on the YouTube page, and then occasionally we'll put in flyers as well on the Instagram page. So we'll send you all the links to the various social media pages so it can be shared as well. One person also adds that they have an NGO. Is it advisable to establish a business to support its project? There's a question from Mr. David Hagan.
A business to support its project. It is possible, so far as you are establishing the business for the objects of the NGO. So maybe you can go into other ventures, but you have to make sure that you are not actually reaping off the profits of the venture that you are establishing, and that you're going to use all the money that you're going to generate to carry out the objectives of the NGO. It is possible for you to do that.
All right, and then the last question, somebody wants to find out whether Kojo Akomia Jen, can you assist with this process for a client? How much do you charge?
Hi, Kojo. Okay, so the fee actually differs. If you are talking about professional fees, it's actually differs, okay, of what is actually involved and what you want me to do. So we can talk about that maybe after the presentation.
Anyway, so is there a question that I didn't read? After registering as a sole proprietor, can you change it to limited liability, and how do you do that?
Yes, that is actually possible. So once you've registered your business into you've registered your business name, you can convert it into a limited liability company. There is actually a process for it. There is a form for it. Once you go to the Registrar General's department, they will guide you as to how to do it. It's a simple process. You can still use your sole proprietorship, the name you use for your sole proprietorship, just that you have to add limited at the end of the name. So it's something that can be done.
All right, and the last question, unless probably another one comes from Senami Seno. The person asks, kindly help on a public servant being a director of a company. I understand there's a Public Service Act and a whole lot. Kindly elaborate on that. So what the person means is that if you're a public servant, can you be a director?
As far as I know from the Companies Act, there isn't any limitations on a public servant acting as a director. So I believe that if you're a public servant, you can be a director, provided you meet the requirements under the Companies Act, the requirements that I mentioned under the Companies Act. But there isn't any specific thing that I know of that a public servant cannot be a director.
Okay. Is there any, if I didn't read your question, you can unmute yourself and then ask the question. But Helen, thank you very much for your time. Thank you very much for your insights. It's been very, very impactful, and we are grateful for your time and accepting the invitation. And then to all of you too that also made the time for this program too, we are extremely grateful. Thank you for your time, and we are sure
hello, sir.
Yeah, hello.
Hello, sir. Yes, my name is Warren.
Okay.
I think I asked a question, but you skipped that. I want to find out. Yes, I want to find out. Now, in Ghana, especially in renewing your business certificate at the Auditor and Accountant General's Department, it's not business friendly at all. So how can we all help in making that possible? Because sometimes you will go there and then they will be tossing you up and down. You have to submit your audited account. Sometimes you need a solicitor, but you know, few people are aware of this. So how can we all help in making this business friendly?
This is a general question. I understand your frustration, okay, but I can assure you that these days the services at the Registrar General's Department has really improved, okay. But I would advise that, okay, you know, they have introduced this online registration system. I would advise that you register online so that you can be doing your renewals online. This whole process, I know what you're talking about. It's very tiresome, but then the registrar is actually working on it. Services has really improved ever since they introduced this online registration system. So I'm sure that with time we can get there. But I can also assure you that what we are seeing now is actually an improved system. So I guess with time we'll get there. I understand your frustration though.
Is there any other question that probably you haven't answered? If not, then, like I said, I thank you all for your time. I thank you all for your attention, and we are grateful. The Lawyer's Diary will be coming your way every weekend. So we're treating topics from commercial law, from family law, from constitutional law, from practical nature. If you want to apply shares, what are the steps that you need to take? If you've opened a company, what are some of the things that you need to do in filing your company documentations? We'll consider things about owning family lands. How is it advisable that if you have, if say you have brothers and sisters or your parents have land, is it advisable to build on that family land? If you build on that family land, what are your interests on those family lands? How to make a will, and a whole lot of things, and then the packages. So every Saturday, either Friday or Saturday, so every weekend, one lawyer will be coming to speak to us on our issues. So thank you all, thank you all, thank you, and I'm grateful. I mean, this is the first time we are having this, and the participants were over 40. It means that going forward, we'll have lots of people on our platform. So we are grateful for your time, and thank you all, thank you all, thank you, I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
All right.